Hi there, and thanks for joining me. As we get ready for the holidays and gather with our families, it's so easy to just go through the motions, to take our traditions for granted. But I've found that when you dig a little deeper, when you understand the story behind it all, it makes everything feel that much more meaningful. So today, let's do that with Christmas.
We all know this scene, right? The lights, the beautiful tree, that feeling of magic in the air. It just feels timeless, like it's always been this way. But the story of how we got here, well, that's an incredible journey through empires and faith and centuries of human celebration. So, have you ever stopped and really wondered where it all comes from? Let's find out.
You see, our modern Christmas isn't just one single story. Nope. It's more like a beautiful, intricate tapestry woven together from all these different threads. Threads from ancient Roman festivals, from deep Christian faith, and from all kinds of rich European folk culture. Each one of those threads tells a part of the story.
Okay, so let's start by unwrapping the very first layer, the date itself. Everybody knows Christmas is December 25th. But here's the thing. For the first couple hundred years of Christianity, it wasn't. Not at all. So where on earth did December 25th come from? In those very early days, there was nothing in the Bible that said, celebrate on this specific date. The Gospels, you see, they're way more concerned with the message of Jesus' life than the exact calendar day he was born. So you had different communities observing it at different times. This created a kind of empty space on the calendar, a vacuum just waiting for a tradition to form.
So how did December 25th become the day? Well, this timeline here gives us the clues. First, in 274 AD, the Roman Emperor Aurelian creates this huge pagan festival for the birth of the unconquered sun, and he puts it right on December 25th. Then, just about 60 years later, what do you know? We see the first written record of Christians in Rome celebrating the nativity on that exact same day. And then, in 352, Pope Liberius holds the first official Christmas Mass. He basically drops an anchor in history and locks in the date for the Western Church.
But it wasn't just about the date. The whole vibe of the celebration was also soaking up what was already happening in Roman culture. The biggest winter party of the year was Saturnalia, a week of feasting, giving gifts, and famously turning the social order completely upside down. It's not a huge leap to see how that atmosphere of pure joy and generosity just kind of spilled over into the way early Christians celebrated their new holiday.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. Okay, hold on. What about the story in the Bible, the journey to Bethlehem for the Roman census? And you're right, that's a huge part of the narrative. But it's also a point that historians have debated for a long time, and it's worth taking a quick look at both sides.
This really is a fascinating historical puzzle, and there are good arguments on both sides. On one hand, historians point out that we have no record of an empire-wide census like the one described, and that a governor named Quirinius wasn't in charge at the time Jesus was likely born. But on the other hand, there are some pretty plausible explanations. The Romans did periodic censuses all the time, and they could take years to complete. And we actually have a later Roman document from Egypt that did require people to return to their ancestral homes. So the main takeaway here is that it's just not a simple question with an easy answer.
Okay, so we've got the date, and it's rooted in these Roman solar festivals. Now for the fun part. Let's unwrap the customs themselves. The story of our traditions moves from the quiet, solemn church services into the wild, loud, and boisterous spirit of the people.
This is one of my favorite bits of history. In medieval England, Christmas celebrations were led by a character called the Lord of Misrule. It's a direct echo of that Roman Saturnalia, where social roles got flipped. A peasant or some other commoner was chosen to be a mock king for the holidays, and it was his job to lead the party and turn the whole strict social order on its head.
And believe me, this was not some quiet, polite fun. One person who saw it back then described it as absolute court-approved madness, with hobby horses, dragons, and thundering drummers striking up the devil's dance. Even the real king had to do what the Lord of Misrule said. It was a time of complete, joyful anarchy.
And yeah, some of those old traditions were a far cry from the cute caroling we picture today. Wassailing was basically groups going door to door demanding booze and food, and sometimes they threatened to cause trouble if they didn't get it. Mumming was another one, people dressing up in masks and costumes. But, hiding your identity could sometimes lead to real mischief and even crime. It was a loud and sometimes pretty rowdy time to be alive.
Now, let's pivot to a symbol that is much more familiar to all of us, the Christmas tree. And for this, we really have to thank German tradition and, believe it or not, the British royal family for making it the global icon it is today. The journey of the Tannenbaum, our Christmas tree, started way, way back, with ancient Germanic tribes using evergreens to celebrate the winter solstice. The first time we see a record of a decorated tree indoors is from 1605, but the real game changer, the moment it went global, was in the 1840s. Prince Albert, Queen Victoria's German husband, brought the tradition to the English court. A picture of their family around the tree was published, and it basically went viral, 19th century style. That, plus all the German immigrants coming to America, cemented the Christmas tree in our homes for good.
But as you can probably imagine, this whole mashup of sacred and secular, of Christian stories and pagan traditions, well, it didn't sit right with everyone. In fact, it led to a massive backlash, a time when celebrating Christmas was, get this, actually illegal.
It just sounds crazy to us now, doesn't it? I mean, why on earth would anyone want to ban Christmas? But for the Puritans back in the 17th century, the reasons were deadly serious. For the Puritans, it all came down to this. They looked at the holiday and saw something that was fundamentally unchristian. They believed its roots were pagan. They saw the influence of the Catholic Church, what they called papist beliefs. They looked at the wassailing and mumming, and they didn't see harmless fun. They saw excuses for drunkenness, threats, and crime. And maybe the most important point for them, they said, show us where in the Bible it commands us to celebrate this day. And of course, it doesn't. So they banned it, first in England and then in New England, driving the whole celebration underground for a generation.
So, after all that, the Roman dates, the wild parties, the royal trees, even a Puritan ban, what does all of this messy, complicated history mean for us today as we think about our own families and legacies?
Well, I think the first big idea is that the story of Christmas is really a story of adaptation. It reveals a pretty brilliant strategy for a new faith. Instead of trying to stamp out the celebrations people already know and love, you absorb them. You give their joy and their timing a new, deeper meaning. That's how you really connect with people.
What we celebrate today is a direct result of that amazing fusion. It's the sacred story of the Nativity completely intertwined with that natural, human impulse to celebrate light during the darkest time of the year. Knowing about the pagan roots doesn't take away from the Christian meaning at all. If anything, it shows just how deeply that meaning got woven into the very fabric of our culture.
And for me, that's what makes our tradition so much richer, not weaker. Knowing that the joy of Saturnalia and the symbolism of an evergreen tree and the profound story of Bethlehem all flow together into this one big holiday, well, it just gives it a wonderful depth. It gives us a much more interesting story to tell our kids and our grandkids.
So I'll leave you with this thought to chew on. As you build your own family traditions, whether you're just starting a family or you're thinking about the legacy you'll leave behind, how does knowing this long, layered history shape what you want your celebration to mean? What's the story you want it to tell?